This is who we are, best friends.
The soldier remembers looking back to that Christmas Eve with shock as he heard Christmas carols that he learned in the church his mother attended. It didn't take longer than a verse before the British were singing with the Germans, both in their own languages, both from their own trenches. After singing familiar carols like Silent Night, a German soldier yells in broken English, "You no shoot tomorrow, we no shoot." The next morning, as the light dawns, soldiers lay down their weapons, leave their trenches, share photos, drinks, football games, and more. The war was over for the men in no man's land for one day, and it was Christmas Day. They not only shared drinks, but gave each other gifts. They took photos together and helped bury the dead. This dramatically affected soldiers across the world, wondering if they could too have a truce in the middle of war. Generals soon banned this, and the story was shared as a myth so that soldiers wouldn't believe it was possible. The higher-ups didn't want them to forget they were meant to kill the enemy, not befriend them. In a sense, the new command worked. The day after Christmas, the British and Germans who shared drinks, gifts, and games used those same hands to pick up their weapons again and engage in the act of war. But word soon spread across the world. Soldiers didn't care if it was myth or true. They wanted to lay down their weapons and meet their enemy, to take a break and enjoy the lives they knew they could lose at any moment. In an article written by the Imperial War Museums, it says that during World War I, some groups kept it a secret from their officers and had truces with enemy soldiers, and not only on Christmas Day. For a century, this story was again taught as a myth, but it was finally proven true to the public by a soldier's family who lived and shared photos of him smoking with the enemy, which I believe we have a photo of. He's the man second to the last left. He was a German who didn't forget the men he met on Christmas 1914. The British men who he had learned was his enemy, but he decided to look back on them as friends. And I'm left with a lot of questions. How could he pick up his arms again? How does he feel about the day on when he was getting discharged? How did he tell the children about this story? And the songs of carols, what did he think when that break of dawn changed everything? Now, for us, it can be so difficult in dark times to imagine any sign of light to come through. It can be difficult to look at this story in particular and understand it at all. It is even harder to see the light when we ourselves are stumbling in the dark, wondering, what does it all mean anymore? We just finished a wonderful series taught by Andrew, which was incredible, each sermon, titled Prodigal. We talked about dark times when we can deconstruct our faith, when we try to understand the light of Christ. I can think of specific moments in my own life where so much grief and loss that I would say that there is no hope. Yet it's stories like these that show a glimmer of a different world, a different rule, where confusion, war, and darkness don't control the heart of men, but love, peace, and light do. So walking in darkness. Darkness has a few definitions. We use the term, I was left in the dark about that, right? Meaning we didn't know, we didn't see, or we didn't have the answer. Maybe you can remember a time when your friends or your family got together, but somehow you didn't hear about it, so you were left in the dark. The holidays can be lonely already. We call this seasonal depression, am I right? We feel left in the dark with a lot, and maybe we are. Darkness is also used as a term for evil. The movie we watched on Halloween was too dark. I turn on the news, it's morbid and dark, right? Recent news on big world issues that hold so much darkness can make us feel helpless because we are still dealing with smaller issues within our own lives that seem overwhelming on their own, let alone what's going on in the world. Darkness, practically, literally, is a partial or total absence of light. Put simply, it's the absence of light. This year is coming to an end. We can look back and reflect on the good and the bad, the times we knew what was going on and the times we felt lost, the days we felt safe and the days we felt afraid, the dark times and the light. Which, quick Star Wars nerd moment, that takes me back to Obi-Wan when he's all, before the dark times. I'm so sorry. When I wrote that, I thought that, and I was like, don't say that when you're preaching, but it's too good. We can remember things that just happened. We can remember things that happened not to us but around us, right? The year starting off with WandaVision. That was an exciting TV show. For a lot of us, it was an escape from the chaotic world. We can remember the boats being blocked with the shipment of food, and that was stressful, and it's like, where are my Takis? We look back at the Olympics this year, when scientists found light behind a black hole, or when we got to listen to a new Kanye album. Amen. We look back on the year to remember the good and to forget the bad, but sometimes the holidays don't help. They can be a time remembering something that you had forgotten and didn't want to be reminded of, or you forgot the good things that happened in the year because the end of the year is so dark and cold. For some of us, the holidays are difficult at best. Christmas meant to be a reminder of holly jolly things, and yet it makes us feel a little more empty, frustrated, and tired. Some of us see it as the holiday of shopping, where we see there is no goodwill toward men, but spending for corporations, adding to the problems of the world of fast fashion, fast food, and ignoring the real issues we see. Maybe we see Christmas as a time to be with family, but after the 2020 election, a global pandemic, and hot topic Facebook posts, we are asking ourselves, who is my family? Have their true colors shown? It makes us wonder if the good times have passed. Some of us don't even have family, or at least the family we feel we need. By now you expected the wonderful spouse to drink hot cocoa with by the fire and watch It's a Wonderful Life, sharing cookies and milk when your children go to bed. But singleness looks like it's going to last another year. Or maybe you remember times with your ex, and Christmas is just an ugly argument about who gets the kids this year. Or you're tired of seeing your grandkids fight, your children choose different paths than you, and you wonder if you did any good for them at all as a parent. In a world of complications, these problems show no signs of light, let alone the big global issues of darkness we still don't understand. Today, many are even leaving the faith for a variety of reasons, but some because the place where they should be finding light, they find darkness. Narcissistic pastors who make us doubt if anything they said was real or not. Churches covering up abuse and holding on to their unjust power. Or angry, hateful, selfish people using the name of Christ for their own agenda on Facebook. Maybe today you're someone who just feels like you're the only one who is here that's just sick and tired of believing in something that shares no light to your questions and passions. You've tried church, prayer, the Christian way, but have found no relief to your anxiety, questions, or concerns. It's a dark feeling, wondering if you're alone in the doubting. Being honest with your church family about it makes you feel sick to your stomach, thinking that they may just give you cliches and not help the real issue. Or maybe your darkness is something you're too afraid to speak of, and you're a lot closer to letting go than people realize. As seasonal depression, PTSD, or new problems arise, you have very little hope that the new year will bring any change. Expectations to be someone new, expectations of perfect holidays, etc., realizing the darkness doesn't go away in the new year magically. We live in dark times and a dark world. Christmas isn't the most wonderful time of the year for everyone. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a Christmas song that has been a favorite of mine for so many reasons. But listen to these lyrics. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and mild and sweet their songs repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bow my head, there is no peace on earth, I said. For hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote this poem after two events, the first being his beloved wife. Fanny's dress accidentally caught fire, and she was burned alive in front of him, which he was also scarred from, and so he grew the beard to hide his scars. He later wrote a letter to his sister saying, "How am I alive after what my eyes have seen, I know not." The second event was his son had enlisted into the Civil War, joining the Union Army. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow exclaimed multiple times how he did not want to lose his son to a war and forbade him to enlist. His son enlisted anyway, and Henry received a letter of his greatest fear. Your son has been wounded at war. So he wrote these lyrics from the darkness of his own life and could not understand peace on earth nor goodwill toward men. But my friends, this is why we are here to talk about the light of Christmas. To not pretend that the darkness isn't here, but to point to the light. Singing carols can change the minds of hundreds of soldiers to lay down their weapons when you think that that would be the very last thing that would happen. And it's all around the Advent. Let's focus on Isaiah 9, 2 through 5 for now. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light on those living in the land of deep darkness. A light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice before dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. So some quick background on Isaiah and the writings about his teachings. He's in Israel during the time of the not-so-good King Ahaz. If you know anything about him, he was the worst. You can look him up later. Israel is also not being a good nation at this time, filled with injustice, idolatry, and treating the poor terribly. So Isaiah writes about how judgment is coming to the nation, but not to destroy them. And that's really important, but to purify them, to show them a better way. So that a new government is talked about here in this passage. The old Israel are the people walking in darkness, living in the land of injustice, confusion, treating other image bearers wrongly. But the light has dawned on a new government, but it's in a waiting process. Okay, so Advent starts with a waiting. Isaiah teaches in this passage for us to look towards something coming. So what's coming? It said in verse 2, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. What is it? What is the light they see? You have enlarged the nation. So the nation's prosperity has grown. There's no more fear of the economy. The people are growing because of inclusion, not disclusion, and you have increased their joy. Oh, so that's the next point. You have increased their joy. People are content, grateful, content, and living every day knowing it's enough. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, when people are bringing in the food, celebrating the time of feasts, celebrating the time they can gather the crops of food, seeing it's plenty enough. It says they rejoice as a warrior who gets the plunder, right? So the warrior would find goods from a battle won. A soldier, after winning a battle, would be allowed to go into the homes of the conquered village, take what was in there, and it would be extra. Not only did the soldier not die, but they would also celebrate by getting extra goods, plunder. So this comparison of people are going to the harvest to grab food like a soldier would plunder, it's this symbolism of getting extra. They rejoice knowing that there will be enough and more for them. It says, next, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them like Midian's defeat. So this is an important background. The battle of Midian is found in Judges 7 if you want to do your research. It's where God commands Gideon to not kill the enemy soldiers, but something you wouldn't expect, to sing around their camps, to sing praises to God. And if you know the story, read it for yourself. In the darkness of the Midianites' confusion and chaos, they kill themselves. Isaiah says, just like that day, with the rejoicing of the people in the light, they won't get freedom from killing their enemy. Okay, this is so important, but through rejoicing, he will remove the burdens out from them. The reason why this is important is because it shows a part of God's heart, through a reference that the Jewish people would immediately understand, because the story is told to everyone in that culture, that this light comes through a non-violent act. The light isn't violent. Our God's heart is not one of violence, but rather the enemy will self-destruct because of their desire to stay in darkness. And it's interesting that worship is what they do in battle. And what is it that the German soldiers start doing that began the legendary tale? They sing carols. So, side note, you know I love music. Singing is powerful, so never forget that. But a way we sing through praise and worship, it holds weight to it, church. It's not a buffer time before the sermon. It's a spiritual event in a physical action. that literally brings light, understanding, and the glory of God down. Music and singing is a communication that transcends language, culture, and the spiritual realm. So the next point is the oppression will end. Isaiah then gives the imagery of slavery bars across the soldiers being broken. The rod that is used to beat you into submission will be broken. The things that keep them captive will no longer have any power. Then we see lastly that uniforms will be burned and never used again, like they were destined to be. Again, showing the heart of God, they were never meant to be used. The war that so many fought and no longer have to worry of today will be their last. The war is over. I think of the Christmas song by John Lennon, "The war is over if you want it." We all desire some type of war to end, don't we? The war within ourselves, within our family, within our culture. The war with our planet, species, and nature. The war with others, with our spouse, or with our boss. The war with our neighbors. But specifically, Isaiah is talking to Jews under bad government, soon to be conquered by another bad government, Assyria. So they were about to be slaves. They were in this transitional phase. They don't feel like the war is over at all. So he's stating this new government won't come with battle uniforms or weapons. It doesn't come with killing. The prophecy of light dawning and what the light means all comes from this Advent. What type of world or person can promise peace, justice, joy, and light in this dark world? Why will these good things come to us? And if it doesn't come through war or weapons, how does it come to us? What is it that we are supposed to be looking towards? And so we'll look at the next couple verses, 6 through 7. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness. From that time on and forever, the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." So Isaiah says, look towards the birth, the kingdom creator, the one that changes things. This is the Advent. And now in our dark days, we look back and forward at the same time. We look back to the advent of Jesus and forward to the advent of his kingdom. The light that has dawned, those explanations that I was giving, this is all signs of his kingdom. So when we see good things like that, when justice is served correctly, or someone is set free, or when the bondage of slavery is broken for someone in their life, or when there's reconciliation in a marriage or in a broken relationship, these are all signs of the glimmer of light of God's kingdom. But you may ask yourself, why do we celebrate Christmas? We take this time to remember the birth of Jesus, his new kingdom of light that we are a part of. We have been in darkness. We are in dark times, but we see the glimmer of light. Remembering darkness isn't something, it's the lack of something, light. Darkness can not overcome light ever. It's not like there's light and we put darkness over it. No, that doesn't work. Light overcomes the darkness. No matter how dark it is in the room, the light shines. Isaiah tells us that the light has dawned with his birth. It's this baby we celebrate who brings this new kingdom. It's the birth that takes the government off our shoulders and onto someone new. In the middle of our anxiety, our wars, our pain, a son has been given. I love the phrase, the government will be on his shoulders. We don't have to worry about the political realm anymore. And I don't know about you, but the past 2 elections have been exhausting for me. Peace is on the way. In his kingdom, true justice will be served. You know what it's like to grieve when seeing guilty men walk free and innocent men being served. Our hearts break. The coming kingdom, justice will be given rightly. Again, Isaiah shows us the heart of God by teaching us this. The zeal of the Lord God Almighty will accomplish this. God's heart is that of good things. So when we see evil and darkness, we know that God has nothing to do with it. He is fighting against it with the kingdom of light. Now I know, we can all take a deep breath. Let's be honest, it's difficult to see the dark world and wonder what good is happening. Isaiah shows us to trust in the heart of God. But they are hard questions. Why is there still so much darkness? Why am I still broken? If Jesus is the dawn of the light, why does the light not shine everywhere? Did Jesus lie? Is there any truth in what we read, or is it all a sham? It's important to wrestle with these questions, especially during this time. John writes to those who asked similar questions in the gospel. In him was life, John 1, 4 through 5, and then 9 through 12. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though he was made through, and the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. We can see the true light and not recognize it. That's a real thing. Have you experienced that before? For instance, this has happened to me multiple times. You hear something in your head and you think, am I making this up? Is God talking to me? Or is this real? Is this not? Sometimes I lie awake at night saying, God, where were you today? And I look back at the moments of light and goodness, and then I can believe. I see a lot of darkness throughout my day, but I see glimmer of lights too. I have a conflict at work, and it brings me down. And I think, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to get along with this person. But then I remember at the end of the day, but I know that I've worked out situations with people I've had conflicts with before. There's glimmer of light. Now, for those of us who have chosen light, John also writes this in 1 John 1, 5 through 7. This is the message we have heard from him and declare to you. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. If we claim to have fellowship with him and yet walk in darkness, we lie and do not live out the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus his Son purifies us from all sin. There will be times when we wonder, where is God and his light? So we remind ourselves of this core idea. God is light. There is no darkness in him at all. If we see something wrong and others say, that's God, we can say with confidence, no, there is no darkness in him at all. Advent is the reminder of what we have faith in, and it's the light of Jesus. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, in spite of all of his fame and his pain, finishes his poem with these lines that for me really resonated and shared light with me. Then rang the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. I think of that quote that's been going around a lot on TikTok. Even if you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be night. Remember, light doesn't dawn on those in the light. It dawns on those in the darkness. And just like the German soldier who sang Christmas carols with the British soldier and bonded with the enemy, so can the advent of Christ bring light to our darkness. Healing to your sickness, restoration to your relationships. I know it's hard to trust God in the middle of darkness, wondering where to go, what to do now. How do we know if God's right about this? How do we know we are in the right place? It's so dark. But church, be encouraged, the light has dawned. Isaiah shows us that our faith in this idea surrounding Jesus, that he offers a way to a better life, that he offers light to those in the dark. God does not desire for you to be stumbling in the dark and to be oppressed. And he also doesn't view you as those sinners are lost. No, God views you as they are lost. Let's go help them. He doesn't view you as an inconvenience, but he views you as someone who needs help. How come the light isn't everywhere? You can say, sure, I've seen good things happen. This story is really beautiful, perfect for a Christmas sermon. But how come there's still wars going on? Just like when you switch on the lights in a building, it feels like immediately the light fills the whole room. But there are nanoseconds where they don't. The light is traveling slowly. Light travels through time like we do. That's why there's so many songs built around this concept of time and how do we process it and how do we deal with it. It's part of the human experience. There are stars, lights in the sky that aren't even alive anymore, but because the light is still traveling through space, we see it. So God, why is it so dark is our question. The light is traveling, but it's here. In little pockets of the world spreading, and churches across the globe, through people believing and accepting Jesus as their new ruler. Jesus people are learning what it means to follow him, and it's just the beginning. I don't believe that the world is going to get worse before it gets better. Jesus says we are the light of the world. It's difficult, yes, but we are the light of the world. And the worship team can come back up. Advent starts with the reminder we are waiting for the spread of light. Will we have a lack of faith along the way? 100%. But we know he is good and he will renew our strength. The Advent is here to remind us to wait. Is it going to cause anxiety? Yes. So we lay our weapons down, we sing praises to God, we don't take control of the situation. Remember, we're not God. We can't fix all these problems. But we can spread some light on these issues. We can point people to the light. We're not better than the people in the darkness. We are in the darkness. We were walking in the darkness, and Jesus was the light that shined on us so that we can walk in this light. Remember what Isaiah teaches as well. Not do we only receive good gifts in this light with a new kingdom, a new government, a new rule, but we have a good gift giver. When we need wisdom to know what decision to make that's more kingdom-focused, we have the wonderful counselor. When we need correction and love when we fail, and we will fail, to shine the light at all times, to make the right decisions, we have the everlasting Father. When we are anxious, afraid, hopeless, depressed, tired, worn out, in the dark, in the unknown, in a foreign place and feeling alone, we have the Prince of Peace. The greatness of his kingdom has no end. It gets better and better and better. If you're like me, you still have a lot of questions for God. And some anxieties. That's all right. The light has dawned. It's offering peace, and it's right here with you. We don't see all the light yet. Remember, it's just the dawn. So we know that the light has dawned with the birth of Jesus, and the light that shines is his people. Like it says in Matthew, you are the light of the world. So today I ask you the question, are you walking in darkness? Are you anxious? Are you tired of seeing a government filled with injustice? Look to the true light, our coming King, our peace, Jesus Christ. I'm right there with you guys. It's an exhausting faith. But there's something about it that makes this burden of the world so light. When I see injustice on TV, when I see failures in my own life or things that I look at and I don't know what the answer is. There are a lot of things that I still don't know the answer to. I'll call Andrew and I'll be like, bro, what do I do? It's okay. There's a light. It's dawned. It's spreading in the world. I think of the hymn that my mom and dad taught me growing up, and it's been stuck in my head all week. I love it. If you know it, you can sing along, but if I can remember the melody. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. So good. Church, you are not alone. There is doubt, there is confusion, there is anxiety. But the light has dawned. Let's stand and worship.